His name is Punch. He is 8 months old. Every morning he wakes up holding this. It is a stuffed orangutan, about $10 fur, matted now, dragged across rocks every day since he was 1 week old. He has never spent a night without it. His mother left on the day he was born. This one stayed. In 1958, a scientist named Harry Harlow asked a question that nobody had thought to ask before. Not why infants need their mothers, but what exactly they are holding on to. He spent years trying to find out, and what he found was not what anyone expected. What Punch is doing right now may be the answer to the part Harlow never finished. This is where it began. July 26th, 2025. A record heat wave sits over the Kanto region, the air above Monkey Mountain still and heavy, in a way that makes sound carry differently, flatter, closer, without echo. The rocks hold the heat from the day before and release it slowly through the morning, so the enclosure stays warmer than the surrounding air for a few hours around dawn. A first-time mother gives birth on the rocks in the late morning, and by the end of the day, she is gone. Her infant weighs 500 grams smaller than a can of soup. A keeper finds him before dark, tucked against a stone in the shadow of the feeding area, alive and making no sound. He crouches down and looks at him for a moment without touching him, then picks him up and carries him inside. The first decision is easy: bottle feed him. The second decision is harder. What does he hold on to? In 1958, Harry Harlow was studying something else entirely when he noticed infant monkeys in his laboratory clinging desperately to the cloth diapers lining their cages. Not to their food bowls, not to anything that fed them to cloth. He stopped what he was doing and designed a new experiment: 2 surrogate mothers placed side by side. One made of bare wire mesh with a milk bottle fitted into the chest. One made of soft terry cloth with nothing. No food, no warmth, no function except its texture. The infant spent 17 hours a day with the cloth mother, less than 1 hour with the wire one, only long enough to eat, then they ran back. Every time without exception. Harlow called it contact comfort. He said love is not food. Love is something you can hold on to. The keeper who finds Punch on the evening of July 26th does not need to read the paper that finding has traveled 67 years through institutions and training programs and zoo protocols until it is simply the way things are done. You give a hand-reared infant primate something to hold, but the object has to be right. A rolled towel is tried first, shaped carefully round at the top, dense enough to hold its form, and placed next to Punch. Punch reaches for it, but cannot grip it, the surface too smooth and uniform, with nowhere for small fingers to find purchase. A Japanese macaque infant grips its mother's coat from the first hour of life. The grip is instinct before it is anything else. The grip is how they stay on the grip, is how they know they are not alone. He needs something with long fur, something that resists pressure and springs back, something that behaves like the thing it is replacing. A giraffe plush from the supplies cabinet is tried next. The fur is too short, too dense. It compresses under pressure and does not spring back, has the wrong texture, the wrong weight, the wrong depth. Punch tries to grip it once and lets go, tries again, lets go again, and the giraffe sits beside him and means nothing. There is a stuffed orangutan in the corner of the office that has been there for a while. Nobody ordered it. Specifically, nobody remembers exactly when it arrived, or who left it, or whether it was meant for something else entirely. Orange with long, uneven fur that shifts direction under pressure and springs back when you release it. Weighted Velcro hands that can wrap around things and hold. An IKEA Jungelskog, the kind that sells at the Funabashi store for about 1,500 yen. The keeper picks it up, turns it over, looks at the fur length, the weight, the texture of the palms, then puts it next to Punch without ceremony. Punch touches the fur with the back of one hand, adjusts his angle, tries again with his fingers. His fingers find the length of it and close around the fibers. He grips. The fur holds. He does not let go. The keeper notes the time in his log without looking up. That is the right answer. His name given by the keepers in the early weeks is Punch. And the stuffed orangutan is named Oran Mama. Not from any single decision, but from repeated use until the informal name becomes the only name anyone uses. The bottle feeding schedule is established 7 in the morning, 7 in the evening. Keeper Shikano Kosuke, 24 years old and in his first full year at the zoo, handles most of the early feedings. He comes in at 10 minutes before 7, preparing the formula at the temperature. Punch has learned to expect lifting him carefully to support the back and the base of the skull. The bottle goes in at the angle that keeps air out, and the small throat works, and the small hands grip the sides of the bottle with a focused proprietary grip, as though supervising the process. When the bottle is empty, Shikano sets Punch down and steps back. He does not linger, does not reach down, again crosses the room, and writes in the log. The goal, Shikano will say later, is for Punch to blend in so completely that no one on the mountain can tell he was raised by hand to move through the group like he was always there. For that to happen, the first attachment has to be to something that cannot follow him onto the mountain. Oran Mama cannot follow him. She is the bridge, not the destination, between the morning feeding and the evening feeding. Punch holds her when he sleeps with both hands gripping the upper chest fur and his face pressed sideways against the left shoulder. When something frightens him, a sudden sound from outside, or a shadow crossing the window at the wrong angle, he holds her when nothing is happening at all. When the light through the window is just light and the afternoon is just an afternoon. He holds her in the way that things are held when holding is the whole point. Not to transport, not to examine, to hold. Harlow called this the secure base, the thing you come back to so you have the courage to leave it. Punch does not know. This does not know anything about Harlow or Wire Mothers or Terry Cloth or 1958. He knows that Oran Mama is where he left her. That is all he needs to know. From across the room, the keeper watches and writes small entries in the log. Punch gripped at 7:04 and did not release. Punch slept with both hands holding the upper chest fur. Punch startled at a sound from outside and pressed his face into the left shoulder and held for approximately 40 seconds before releasing. These are not dramatic entries, not written with any particular feeling. They are the record of an ordinary morning in the life of a small primate who was found in the shadow of a feeding station on a hot July evening and brought inside before dark. They are the record of something working. Outside on Monkey Mountain, the other macaques move through the rocks in their ordinary way. Grooming calling. Settling disputes that are over before a human eye can fully register them. They do not know that in a room nearby, something is being slowly learned. How to hold on, how to be held, how to carry across months and all the small frightening moments in between the knowledge that there is something constant, something that stays. 6 months pass the way early months do, when nothing goes wrong in small increments in the accumulated weight of ordinary days, in the slow and undramatic work of becoming. And then on February 5th, 2026, everything changes scale. The zoo posts a short video 43 seconds long. A small monkey drags an orange stuffed animal across a rocky enclosure, the fur of the stuffed animal matted and worn in the places it is gripped. The monkey is visibly small, 2 kilograms by now, a weight that a person could hold in one hand, and he drags Oran Mama with a kind of focused intention. Not playing, not wandering, just moving from one place to another with her in tow. Within 48 hours, 50 million people have seen it. Within a week, it has reached every continent. Something in the 43 seconds catches in people in a way that is difficult to articulate and very easy to feel they recognize the shape of the story before they know any details. A small thing holding onto something soft in a world that did not make room for it. The stuffed orangutan sells out in 49 of 54 IKEA stores across the United States within 4 days, in 11 of 12 stores in Japan, in 18 of 26 in the United Kingdom. On eBay, the Djungelskog lists for $300, then 501 sells for over $1,700. The buyers are not children, they are adults, mostly buying a specific orange stuffed animal. They cannot fully explain wanting not buying a toy, but buying the feeling of watching Punch hold on. They want the object that is holding something together to be in their hands, want to turn it over and feel the weight and the fur, and understand in a physical way what it is made of and why it works. They cannot fully articulate this. They buy it anyway. At the zoo, the mail begins arriving letters from Japan, from the United States, from Brazil, from Australia, from countries. The small administrative office is not fully equipped to sort. Some envelopes contain drawings, children's crayon punches and orange Oran Mamas, sometimes labeled in careful childish letters. Some contain photographs. Some contain tucked inside folded paper. Small stuffed animals, pandas, bears, soft rabbits. People want Punch to have a backup, want him to be okay. If something happens to Oran Mama, the worry specific. What if she wears through? What if the Velcro hands finally separate? What if the thing that is holding him together stops holding? At his desk in the late afternoon, when the enclosures are quiet, the keeper reads some of the letters, sets the stuffed animals carefully in a storage area, writes brief, courteous replies to some of the senders. He thanks them for writing, but does not explain what he already knows. That the specific thing Punch needs cannot be replaced with a newer version of itself. On February 17th, the CEO of IKEA Japan drives to Ichikawa Zoological Park. Her name is Petra Fair, and she brings 33 Djungelskog orangutans, the same model, the same dimensions, the same long orange fur and weighted Velcro hands. All of them new, all of them clean, all of them still carrying the faint, slightly sweet smell of factory packaging and warehouse shelves. Not one has been on a rock. Not one has been gripped by small, anxious fingers in the dark. Not one has been dragged anywhere. There are photographs taken at the entrance, formal and friendly, and to the press. She says she hopes one day he won't need it anymore, a good thing to say. And she means it sincerely. The keepers distribute the 33 new orangutans near Punch's area, not in a pile, but placed nearby, visible, available. Punch looks at them, moves toward one, and lowers his head to sniff along the side of the head, then steps back and looks at the others. He walks past them, not hurrying, not avoiding them with any drama, just moving past them, the way you move past things that are not the thing you are looking for. He walks back to the original. The one with the matted fur, the worn patches along the chest and left shoulder, where his hands have been every day for 7 months. The one that smells like the two of them together, not like a stuffed animal, not like a factory or a warehouse, but like 7 months of mornings and evenings and all the minutes in between. The one that has been on every rock he has ever sat on. The one that was there on the first night. He picks it up. He holds on. This is what Harlow proved, and this is what Harlow could not prove. He proved that infants need something soft to hold. But what no laboratory has ever been able to isolate, because laboratories work with categories and not with particulars, is that it matters which one. Not the model. The specific one. 33 identical alternatives sit nearby, brand new, objectively, in better condition. Punch walks past them and goes back to the one with the worn left shoulder. The world keeps sending more letters, more drawings, more small animals packed carefully in padded envelopes. A package arrives from a woman who bought a Djungelskog for her daughter 20 years ago and kept it after her daughter grew up, her daughter's name written on a small paper tag attached to the wrist. A package arrives from a school in rural Japan. 40 children's drawings bound together with a rubber band. A note from the teacher saying they watched the video in class and talked about it for an hour. A package arrives from a retired keeper who worked with macaques for 30 years in a different zoo. And she writes on 2 sides of the paper, in small, careful letters, about the day when a different macaque finally stopped needing the surrogate and walked away from it for good. She says it looks like loss, but it is not loss. She says it looks like abandonment, but it is the opposite. She says the whole point of the object is to make itself unnecessary. The keeper puts her letter in a folder, separate from the general correspondence, reads it twice, folds it back along the original creases, then puts it away and goes to the window. Punch is sitting in the upper section of Monkey Mountain with Oran Mama in his hands, not looking at her, but looking out across the rocks with the alert outward attention of an animal, learning how to be part of a world larger than himself. He is holding her and looking elsewhere, and that is different from 3 months ago, when something catching his attention meant turning toward Oran Mama. Now he is turning outward. The looking elsewhere is increasing, the holding is not decreasing, not yet. But the two have separated slightly, and the slight separation is everything. January 19th, 2026. 17 days before the video, before the 50 million people, before the 33 orangutans that would arrive untouched and mean nothing. Punch walks into Monkey Mountain for the first time. 176 days after he was born. It is a cold morning. The light still low and angled across the rocks, the mountain quiet. In the way it is only in the first hour after the gates open. He is carrying Oran Mama against his chest with both arms, the way he has always held her high, close left hand pressed into the shoulder, right hand gripping the lower back. He carries her the way you carry something you do not think about carrying. Not because he decided to bring her, but because setting her down would require a decision that carrying her does not. The mountain is loud in the way that mountains full of Japanese macaques are loud movement on rocks. Sharp, clipped calls that mark space and position in a hierarchy settled and resettled over years. Punch stops at the edge of the open area and does not put Oran Mama down. He stands there and looks. He has seen this through windows, heard the sounds through walls, but standing in it is different. The smell is different, the scale is different, and the other animals are not on the other side of glass, but simply here in the same air, on the same rocks. He stands at the edge and holds Oran Mama and looks. 2 meters out from the wall, something shifts in the rocks to his left. Another juvenile moving fast across a flat stone, and Punch folds back, grabs Oran Mama with both hands and presses his face into the left shoulder. Maybe 8 seconds, maybe 10. Then he lifts his face, lets go with the right hand and moves out again. 2 meters, 3. Stopping to look at 2 adults sitting on a higher rock who do not look at him. He comes back to Oran Mama. He does not run, he walks, and the walk means there is enough confidence to walk, where the run would mean the confidence had limits that the walk does not. A moment of holding, then out again. Go out. Come back. Go a little further. Come back again. Learn the distance by teaching it to your feet. Learn the world by learning that the world is returnable. The distances grow over the following weeks in January. Rarely more than 3 or 4 meters before returning in early February, sometimes 5, and in mid-February, a keeper watching from the observation area notes in the log that Punch climbed to the second level of rocks for the first time without looking back. One morning in late February, the same keeper notes that Punch left Oran Mama on a flat rock near the south wall and did not return for 11 minutes. 11 times. He placed her carefully, not dropped, but set down with the deliberateness of someone placing a thing where they intend to find it again. Orange face, pointing slightly upward. Velcro hands loose at her sides. After a moment looking at her, he turned and walked into the upper section. 11 minutes on the upper rocks, briefly near 2 adult females who did not acknowledge him, which is its own form of acceptance. The indifference of the integrated, the not being noticed, that means you have been placed correctly. Twice he looked down at Oran Mama from above. She was still there. He went back after 11 minutes, picked her up, held on. The keeper wrote it down without underlining it. Without calling anyone over, wrote it down, because it is worth recording, because the log is where things that matter are put without commentary or ceremony. February 26th. Punch is moving through the lower section of the enclosure. In the late morning, the light coming in from the east at an angle that makes the rocks bright on top and shadowed underneath. He has left Oran Mama on the flat rock near the south wall. Orange face tilted slightly up, Velcro hands at her sides, visible from most of the enclosure. At a crack in the rock face, he stops and examines it with his fingers. Near the place where 2 juveniles are grooming each other with the focused, methodical attention that grooming requires, he pauses and watches. He keeps glancing back. She is still there. He keeps moving. Outside the eastern fence, the keeper stands and does not go in. Does not make a sound. Watches Punch move through the lower section. Pausing, examining, glancing back at the orange shape on the flat stone, and does not interfere with what is happening. Not the holding, the leaving. From a distance, Oran Mama looks abandoned. She is not. She is where he left her, where he knows to find her. and she was there on the first night and every night since. He carries her, leaves her, comes back, carries her again. This has been happening every day for 7 months. Harlow's cloth mothers were bolted to the floor of the laboratory enclosure. They stayed because they had no choice. Oran Mama is not bolted to anything. She stays because she is carried. She is where she is because he brought her there on a specific morning, through a specific route across specific rocks, and set her down in a specific place. She is constant because she is chosen. Every morning, every time. There is a keeper at the zoo who has worked with macaques for 15 years. Not Punch's primary keeper, who watches from outside sometimes early in the morning before the zoo opens, when Monkey Mountain is quiet and the light is still coming in low from the east. He has seen this arc before. Not Punch specifically, but the shape of it, the object, the attachment, the gradual extension of range. The morning when the animal leaves the object for longer than the day before the day. Eventually, when the object is simply not picked up. He has seen that moment and knows what it looks like. Standing at the eastern fence on a late February morning, he watches Punch move across the lower rocks, without Oran Mama in his hands, watches the distance between each moment when Punch glances back at the orange shape on the flat stone. The distance between glances is getting longer, not the distance Punch travels. The distance between the moments when Punch needs to confirm that she is still there. That is the measurement that matters, and it is getting longer. It is evening on Monkey Mountain, the light coming from the west, low and amber. The way late light moves in late February slowly, with a kind of reluctance, holding the warmth longer than the warmth is actually there. The rocks are orange in it, and the tree line at the back of the enclosure catches the top of the light, while the undersides of the branches stay dark. Punch is sitting in the upper section on a flat rock near the west-facing wall. That catches the last of the afternoon with Oran Mama beside him. Not in his hands, but propped against a small outcropping of stone Velcro hands loose at her sides. Face tilted slightly upward toward the light. The amber light reaches her, and the fur is more orange in it, matted down in the places he holds most. The hands, the chest, the left shoulder, always the left shoulder, because that is where his face goes when something frightens him. She looks nothing like the 33 new ones in the keeper's storage room, whose fur still lifts and falls the way it does when it has never been compressed by grip, which has no memory. Those 33 are in perfect condition. Oran Mama is not. She is in exactly the condition she should be in after 7 months of being the most important object in a 2-kilogram animal's life. Harry Harlow titled his 1958 lecture, "The Nature of Love." He meant it as a scientific question, what is love made of? What is its smallest working form? He answered part of it. Contact warmth, something to hold on to, something that stays, and proved. These things were not secondary, not luxuries, but the floor itself. He did not answer the rest. The rest looks like this. A specific weight in your hands. Not the weight of a category, but the weight of this particular object slightly heavier on the left side, because of how the stuffing has settled from being gripped on the left side every morning. A specific smell. Not the smell of the material, but the smell of the two of them together. Accumulated morning by morning, the smell that has no name, because it has never needed one. A specific patch of worn fur under your left fingers. Because that is where you always hold, because your hands learned that place, before you knew you were learning anything. Because some knowledge lives in the hands before it lives anywhere else. The hands know first. The hands always know first. Not comfort, this comfort. Not love, this one. Punch looks out across the enclosure as the mountain settles into the slower rhythms of early evening anim, finding their positions, the low ambient sound of a colony arranging itself for darkness. The amber light is moving off the upper rocks and toward the tree line, and soon the enclosure will be in shadow. Reaching sideways without looking, his hand finds the left shoulder of Oran Mama and closes around the worn fur there, not pulling her closer, not looking at her, just holding. The way he has always held. The way he will hold tomorrow morning when it is early and the air is cold and the day has not yet decided what it is going to be. He will reach for her, find her hold on, And then when he has held long enough to know that holding is possible, and return is possible, and the world is the same size it was yesterday, he will let go. And he will go out, and the distances will keep getting longer. And the time between the glances back will keep growing. And one morning, not soon, but one morning he will walk out into the enclosure and not look back. And Oran Mama will be on the rock where he left her, and he will not go back to her. And the keeper standing at the fence where he dies will note it in the log without underlining it. And Oran Mama will stay on the rock, and that will be the point of all of it. Harlow named the phenomenon in 1958, stood in a room full of skeptical scientists and said, "This is what love is made of." He was right about the material. It took 67 years and a $10 stuffed animal and a monkey who ignored 33 better ones to show us what he actually meant. Not comfort, this comfort. Not something to hold, this one, the specific one, the one that was there.